Hello, everyone. Welcome to another awesome day of FileMaker training. I'm Richard Carlton, creator of FMTrain.tv, where every day at this time slot, we are doing great FileMaker training, or maybe you folks are training and I'm just learning. That happens frequently. So this upcoming broadcast schedule this week, today, tomorrow, Thursday, Friday, we're continuing the OData conversation. John ran through, but John is here. Yesterday was kind of like an opening framework. And one of the things that comes up is that we're trying to make sure we present this to people who are somewhat experienced, but then also maybe not as experienced. And so the whole issue is that we were making some a business that every day there's a meeting, whether you folks know about this or not, there's planning meetings that go on to bring this live stream to you. And I mentioned that I thought that maybe we were going a little slow about it, and then the people who are more intermediate developers were commenting that that was my warped perspective of the world, and that they thought it was going plenty fast enough for their brains to handle. And so it's one of those sort of things that if you're a senior developer, you've been around the block for a while, just understand that we're going to be doing some groundwork and framework started yesterday, day one. And it's a lot about making sure everyone's on. We bring them up to speed, the same speed, right? And so
other intermediate developers are agreeing that yesterday's intro was really, really good. So
okay, great. Yeah, I've been doing this for 89 years. No, I'm sorry, 34 years only. And as a result of that, sometimes my brain is going faster. Maybe I was over caffeinated yesterday. That can happen, right? I'm back at school. I've gone back to Top Gun. I am at Top Gun. I'm operating at a highly caffeinated rate, so it seems like you're all going really slow. When I'm talking like this, we're gonna go really fast. We're gonna define fields. We're gonna describe. We're gonna trigger. So that's me. So, Margaret, are you ready to go? Are we ready to launch John run through day 2?
I like how you asked me, like.
Well, I'm using you as the pace car, right? The pace car at the race.
I like to think of myself as a canary. If I keel over and die in the mines, you should probably bail.
Oh yeah. So you're alive. So what do we have? Can you give me a? Are we ready to launch?
People, yeah, we're ready to launch. We got everyone watching. A lot of people have drifted in.
So, John, are you ready to go? Day 2. What are we doing?
I'm definitely ready to go. We're going to do some actual real OData today, as in real things. But again, like yesterday, we're not going to go, oh, here's what you can do, here's what you can do, here's what you can do. We're going to start at the beginning so that everybody, I think that's a great point, Richard. If you get everybody at the same speed, that's a good thing, rather than skipping things and then people kind of going, oh, I didn't quite understand. Oh, I missed that.
And I'm going to emphasize real quick, if you, not you, John, but if anyone else, including Margaret, has a question, please ask the question, because I guarantee if you have the question, there's probably 100, and I mean this seriously, 100 other people who have the same question. Please ask the question. I will not embarrass you unless you're one of our known regulars who causes problems here, like Beverly, right? People who cause problems on the show, then I will embarrass them. But normally, please let me know, because if you have the question, other people do. Margaret, goes for you. You're like I said, the canary. So just everyone ask questions, and we'll interrupt John.
And the other thing we're going to do today, Richard, is we are going to try and break things, because it's important to know where to look when something doesn't work as you expect it. So one of the things with doing this kind of training is you go, oh, you just do this, and then you do it and it doesn't work. And either you're frustrated because you think, John's telling lies, or I'm an idiot, or whatever the extreme is between those two. So we are going to deliberately try and break things today.
Good. All right. Sounds like fun.
We are not going to start anywhere near FileMaker for the moment. We're going to start with Postman. We mentioned this yesterday as a tool. Being able to start with Postman is important, or there are other, as we say on BBC land, other tools are available. Some of those are mentioned here. These are tools where you will be able to enter, as we talked about yesterday, the action that you want to happen to the URL, add the parameters, add the authorization, and add some headers to the request, all in one place. And the great news about Postman, if you are not using it, it absolutely can be free, like $0 free, without necessarily the need for the things that we're using it for. There isn't a need to trade up. Now, that's not a great marketing tool from their side, but it is true. And it means we're all using it and it's being developed all the time. Okay, but it can be free. So this is what the Postman screen looks like if you've never seen it before. Okay, a lot of stuff there. So we're just going to help navigate around it. In the list here, you can create folders where you store the things, the individual calls that you're making. So if you have OCD and you're very organized, you will be putting things into folders. Or if you're just a good boy, you'll be putting things into folders because it's going to help you in the long run. This section near the top is where we're doing the action. There's a drop down here for you to choose between get, post, patch, whatever. And then this wide bar is where we build the URL, which is where we're going, what the query is. The piece after the question mark, so technically they're parameters in the URL string, end up in this list of parameters. And you can either type them in the URL string or type them down here. And Postman's clever enough to know that this has to be added to the URL. It's really very cool watching it happen the first time. So either way around, you decide where to do it. And it's all key value pairs. It's something with a name and something with a value. Okay. And then down at the bottom is where we're going to see the result of whatever it is that we've done by clicking the button at the top.
Okay, Margaret, for everyone else who's not Margaret, or for Margaret specifically, this right here is essentially what we're building, okay? This is going to be in here, and there'll be a couple there's some tabs in here. You'll see tabs in here, but this is the command. This is the visible URL. Yeah, perfect, John. It's your chance to take a drink, have a smoke. Then these are the options that this whole box gets cobbled together and shot out to the service, whatever the OData server is. It could be FileMaker, like we talked about yesterday, it could be something else. This is the results that come back. So Margaret, do you understand fundamentally, we build the request, and this could be get record, edit record, delete record, not necessarily record, but get, edit, delete, whatever, or just new, create new, right?
Yeah, well, you're building the calculation on top, and then you evaluate it on the bottom.
Correct, but it has to go to the server out there, and then it comes back to us across the internet.
So essentially, this is exactly the same process you go when you're testing any other API. You'll be reading the documentation. It'll tell you what the rules are. What we're looking at today is what are the rules for OData, specifically talking to FileMaker, okay? And I click that screen so it now works. If you select the authorization tab, we've got a drop down for the different types of authorization, and the way Postman works is you can hide things like usernames and passwords behind a variable so that nobody else can see what it is. The great advantage of that is you can have a piece of code that's pointing to one server, which is what we're doing today. But if you change, it's called an environment. If you change the environment, it'll say, oh, try this same piece of code on a different server, different file, different username, different password. Very, very cool. So Postman, very, very powerful tool. The point of today is not to teach you about how to use Postman, but we are going to be using it live. So it's to kind of just go, hey, here's some things that you'll see happening. This is what it's about. So let's go back to Richard's time for a moment.
When dinosaurs walked the earth.
And And if Beverly's on the call, she'll properly understand this. We used to be doing things like working with custom web publishing, the XML engine, where you'd create the URL and you'd put the username and the password in the URL. Okay, so it would look something like the second line. Not massively secure, we're going to say, because that's transmitted over the internet. And these days, there are bad people who want to steal everything.
Okay, I'm going to ask that you rephrase that.
And,
Your Honor, I object to your phrasing. I request that you rephrase that. Because you said it was sent across the internet. It's all going across the internet, but it's clearly visible right here, Margaret. See password, username, password. It's in the URL.
Oh, there's no variables to put there, so it just.
Well, what you do is
No,
it would be hidden. It would be hidden as curl, right? That's a kind of this hidden stuff that's under there. I mean, Margaret's never done REST, John. Just so you understand.
okay.
There's some people who have never done this, and I'm just clarifying.
No, that's fine. But like we showed yesterday, anything that is a URL, that whole string, you could just copy and paste that and put that into a browser as the address, and it will give you something. So that's technically what REST is. That's what we said yesterday. It's using the transport that the internet uses all the time. Here's a string about where to go, and it's going to give me an answer. And generally, the browser, even if it's data, so the first line was the old XML gateway. It would just give you the XML on the page. Obviously, you can't do anything with it in your browser, but it would still technically work. And the same is true for things like FTP servers. You could type that into a browser and it would open up the FTP window, go into your folders. But we are more circumspect about security these days, and that's why moving it all into headers is really key, because it ends up getting obscured. And if you've worked with any other types of service, you will be used to whatever language they use. Tokens, passwords, client secrets are put in the headers. So some of them, like the OAuth type access tokens, you have to sign in, you get a token, which has a short life, but they give you another token to use so that when that token's died, you can refresh it. So the OAuth tokens, for instance, for Google and Microsoft last for about an hour, and then they're dead. But you can refresh them. You don't need to sign in again. The sign-in process is once at the beginning. If you are using the FileMaker Data API, those tokens last for 15 minutes. And then they die because they create a session on the server. And if you keep them going forever, you'll have lots of ghost sessions eating up resources on the server. And that's like we're going to go, that's a bad idea. So let me click this screen again. But obviously, if you're using tokens, which is a good thing, you have to manage them. You have to get them in the first place. And obviously, every single thing will tell you, here's the rules about how to get our token. This is what you need to do. You obviously need a way to store them if you have to use them. And in the case of the FileMaker Data API, it's a good practice to close them off when you've finished using them. So there's extra work you have to do in FileMaker. So you might have a table with all of your tokens in that you can call and refresh. There's a bunch of extra work to do, not quite so simple. But the benefits are about security, which is like a big thing that we like. And they're about moving where the access control is. So if you're the network administrator, technically you're actually ultimately in control of the part of the token that might be called a secret. And if you think somebody else is using it badly, or somebody's left the room under a cloud, or whatever has happened, you can just go and turn that off as a network administrator, and then all the other tokens that hang off it are no longer valid. So that's why it moves security to where it should be with proper network administrators. There's just a bit of info for today. So one of the questions so what is the difference between the DAPI, the Data API, and OData in terms of talking to FileMaker? And here's a really simple list. We will come back to this in a bit more detail. The Data API needs a token. You make a request with your username and password to get a token, and then everything else you do after that uses that token. Okay. OData, as we started to talk about yesterday, just uses basic authentication, it's called. You just send the username and the password every time. Nothing to manage, nothing to store. There you go, thank you very much. Difference, Data API, again, mentioned it yesterday, is based on layouts in your FileMaker file that have to be there to get data or work with data, whereas OData is based on table occurrences on your relationship graph. Because Data API is built by the Claris engineers, it really understands FileMaker stuff really well, like the things that we use all the time. OData understands a bit of FileMaker stuff, but to the extent that it's a database server with some tables and records, and it fits the model of what a database is. So OData can talk to it without a problem in it. And the Claris people who are doing this are hooking up how the OData thing works to the specifics of FileMaker server. But the Data API obviously can work with things like portals and relationships natively. OData, no idea about that at all. Big fat blank. Both of them can run a script, and that topic is for tomorrow. We're not going to cover it at all today, but we are going to look at it in detail tomorrow. The big bonus, like headline, wow, that's amazing, is that OData can modify the schema of a file. It can create tables and fields and modify fields, okay? Again, this is not for day one. This is later on. We will look at that. But it absolutely can do that quick. If you don't come back on another day, it has to be with a full access account. That's kind of limited because you can screw up your file really easily without trying very hard. So let's get Jack Nicholson in, because the postman, as you know, always rings twice to the enterprise. And the question would be, why would you start not in FileMaker? Okay. And I've shown you some screenshots. Everything is on the one screen. Okay. Everything you need to interact with is on one screen. That's the first thing. There is every chance that you're not going to get things right first time. Even the people that were in the room that we're going to call seasoned developers can read documentation and get it wrong. This tool easily allows you to make modifications and iterate and try again to the point where you go, that hallelujah moment where it's just worked. But the thing that you've just kind of written up, you just click a button and you save it. So you can save your work as you're going along. And for other types of things, API things, almost certainly some of those companies have published their own Postman collection. So I know that Microsoft have for the Graph API. I know that Zero have. I've been using that extensively. Postman have their own collection about how to work with collection. That is, you download a whole folder full of things already pre-built. You just hook in your own username and password. So it's a good way to learn Postman as well. And obviously it's a great, when you're struggling with documentation, if somebody else has provided you with some actual examples, I think that's a good flying start, okay? But obviously it's doing a thing, as we will see, you then want to be using this in FileMaker. And where some people struggle with is, oh, it works in Postman, but I can't get it to work in FileMaker. The ever helpful Wim de Koor did write quite a few years ago a great blog article here. So somewhere on the Soliant Consulting website in the blog, go and look for that thing. He talks about how to do it, and he's written a helpful file that will kind of take what you create in Postman and be able to copy and paste it and go, oh, you paste this to here and you paste this to here. So really, really helpful. I've just helped. There was a tiny little problem with it just recently, which I think is updated. It's a great little file. So that's, again, if you've got nothing else out of today, then that's good enough, isn't it? Really, just learn one thing every day. So let's recap for those that rather rudely were not here yesterday. Our simplest, and the simplest query just says, hey, give me everything you've got. In this domain, that's the first part of the URL, in this file, in this table, just give me everything, okay? And so let's escape out of presentation mode and drag Postman onto the window. Okay, so I'm going to just cut out that. So this says, hey, on this domain, again, /FMI OData v4, in this file name, the file name is Richard's file is kindly hosting for us. There's a table called this. So I just need to move this window out of the way. So I'm going to go, okay, just like give me everything you've got from there, okay? It's going to send a request and we go, bingo, there is some JSON as the answer to what's there, okay? There's some things which are like structure around it. Anything that starts with the @ symbol is put there by OData. It's not a FileMaker thing. It's part of how OData kind of works. But we're going to guess that there's some fields here, and these are the values. So let's just quickly hop over to FileMaker, jump to this table. There you go. So there's a key that starts A2AF and a string that says John. There's a key that starts A2AF and a string that says John. Okay, so that has said to that thing, the FileMaker file over there, could you just give me everything that's in that table? Now, that table has one record to kind of make it easy, and that's all that's in it. So what we'll also just do to prove that this works is we'll, for all those in America, that's like a UK date, if you're not quite used to it. So let's just put a few things in here and run this query again, okay? So the point about this tool is, hey, let's just run the query again, see what's changed. And what we're going to expect is at the bottom, those values have updated with the things that I've just put in, okay?
Okay.
Now, we are going to talk about dates tomorrow, because dates is a whole subject all by itself.
Ask you, I'm going to resist the urge to ask you a question. Okay, sorry. My bad.
No, that's fine. We are going to talk about dates tomorrow because it's a whole separate minefield of its own. But as you can see, the first clue to that is it's come back in ISO format, year-month-day. Okay, and it doesn't matter if I'd put that in a European format, American format, German format, not relevant. OData will send me dates in that format, but that's all we're going to say about dates for now. Okay. So that was like quite a simple thing, and we now know, hey, it works in Postman. So that query at the top, give me everything from this table, gives me an answer. So we know it works.
So
Okay.
it's a
So now
find.
we
It's
want to-
basically it's doing a find all, right? I mean, that's what it was. It's a get record, but it's getting all records, I guess.
It's getting all records from this table. Okay. There is only one record in the table to make this query easier and not confusing for people. It's one record in one table. But that query just says, give me everything in the table. Okay. So let's jump into FileMaker and look at, so this file here on the right with the purple is my file on the desktop. Okay, the file on the left is Richard's file and it's somewhere in America. Okay, so the point about OData is that, well, just as I did in Postman, I said, get me that data from that place. That place happens to be in America. We can be making the same thing work. We can be making the same thing work inside FileMaker. I just want to check what we're doing. Yeah, that's fine. So I have a script in here, helpfully called my first OData get. That is going to run that as FileMaker. And I know that it's broken. So I've rather helpfully said, uh-oh, something went wrong. Now, we know that it technically works. I must have done something wrong in my script. Yeah. So
you're trying to run the same command, but run it from inside a script. Okay, got it.
Yes. Now, this is what the script looks like. We're going to talk about how that much Postman has turned into this in a moment in detail. But essentially, it's because here I'm trying to find a record from this table. And I happen to know that this layout is, that's an irritating thing. This layout is not in the same context. Okay, if I go to here, right, I now am in the context. So the script will now pick up that. And what it's now doing is saying, oh, could you give me back that record with that ID? Okay. So context is kind of important. I'm not showing the whole of the response, just the bit in the middle. But as you can see in there, you can see that date, you can see my name somewhere, you can see that key value, which is A2AF. Okay, so FileMaker has just done the same thing that Postman did. Okay, so maybe that's magic to some people, maybe it's not, maybe it's kind of not magic at all. But essentially, we can take what we just did here in Postman and make it work in FileMaker. Okay, and that's kind of what the next bit is about, really.
And Margaret, that's what Postman's for, because FileMaker script workspace is kind of good to a degree, but it's not really great for beating your head against the wall trying to figure out why your
the simplest thing, if you've made a spelling mistake
your REST
in a FileMaker script, you have to go and click something, go and change it, and then click out of it again and save it, and save the script to run it here. You just make the spelling change and just see if that's the thing that broke it. So let's just do, I'm going to deliberately break this now here and see what happens in Postman. So I'm going to say, give me everything from a table that doesn't exist. And it's trying very hard. And it's going to tell me that's not a FileMaker error. That's a OData error saying, hey, that table doesn't exist. So we are getting back, at the very least, some kind of helpful errors. Okay. Well, it's kind of helpful if the error is specific, isn't it? Because then you know exactly where to look for. So clearly, that isn't what we're going to be doing all the time. You're not going to go, give me everything from this table. because that's just silly, particularly when there's 1 million records in there, okay? Or even 1,000. So this list of special OData words, we're going to look at these two now. $filter and $select, okay? So if you have had any exposure to SQL through the execute SQL command, essentially what that query is saying in the English language, select this from there where this is true or where that is true, okay? That's how that query works. Give me this from there, maybe, you know, you can make it give me all of those, or that's a simple version, obviously. And that fits as the query part of execute SQL. What you get back from an SQL is a text string. Each different field is separated by a comma by default, and each record is separated by a carriage return. So it's just a block of text. In OData, what we're doing is saying, in reverse order, filter, this is equal to this. So that's the where part of the execute SQL statement. And select is, hey, what do you want back? What are the fields that you want back, or the calculations, as we'll see later. And mostly that is returned in JSON, not as a block of text. Now, I will give you this, that anything that I show you from here on in, I'm writing it in an order that makes sense and how most people will have put it in their help on the internet. But you don't have to do any of these things in the order that we're showing. So anything that has a $sign in front of it can be in a different order, okay? We're going to be consistent about what we do today, but you don't have to follow that exactly. So first of all, we're going to look at number fields, okay? So we've got a file in the table. The question mark says, right, I'm going to ask you a question, please. Can you filter this table where something is true, where this field is equal to 3, where this field is less than 10, where this is not equal to 1. Right, now you're immediately confused because I've just started speaking German. So let's just look at this, okay? In OData, the things that we learned to write in maths, and it is maths, not math, for those people watching in America, in our class in school, was these symbols, okay? And we all know what those mean. In OData, you have to learn that this is how you write them, okay? That's just your homework for today. It's only 6 things to learn, and they're kind of obvious. GT, greater than, is greater than or equals GE, okay? But that's the comparators that we're using when we're saying if this thing is true for numbers, okay? That is just fact. There's some German words, we got to learn them. Okay, so now you can go back and go, okay, so what do those first 3 things mean? This field is equal to 3. This one is less than 10. This one is not equal to 1. Okay. When you write that bit of the query, spacing is important. There has to be a space between the field name and this little action word and the value that you're comparing to. Okay, there has to be a space. So something complete might be filter this set of records where the total price is greater than 2,000. Okay. Somebody made a very interesting comment in the Rome FileMaker Week last week, which is that basically 90% of what we do on a daily basis in FileMaker is work with a found set. Find me a bunch of records because I need to act with them. That found set can be 1, what's the current record, or find me all the sales from last week. What we're doing is building queries. And what OData will do is return all the records where that thing is true. Okay. If there are no things that match, you will get a set of empty array brackets looking like that in the result. But the OData header that comes back is a 200, meaning that was successful, because technically it was successful. The query did work. The fact there is nothing in the answer is actually okay. You might have written the query wrong, but technically it's a correct answer. The answer happens to be nothing. Okay. So that's something. So you don't get in FileMaker, we're used to do a query, 401 error in the script saying, hey, no records match. In this case, we just go, no records match, but that's okay, because that's just how the query works. Okay, clear on that one? So there's our list again. So we can also filter on string values, things that are text. Yep. So a text field, in this case, we're finding something that equals John. Now, number values, just jump back, are presented as number values. Strings in OData have a single quote mark round them at all points. That is the character 39 mark. Unlike PowerPoint, which has got those curly quotes around it, it's not those curly quotes at all. It's the single straight quotes. It depends what kind of keyboard you're using, but it is usually on your keyboard. Okay. Now then, filtering for a text value is also case sensitive. You're just going to log that away because we are going to show it working, but it's really helpful to know that that is true. FileMaker, again, is really good. If you go into find mode and type John into the name field, it'll find everything that's John with a small j with a capital J, or Jones or Johnson. FileMaker hides us from all of that. OData, a lot more specific. Think of it as your OCD child, okay? It is case sensitive. It is case sensitive. And in FileMaker, I'll show you what I've done. I've created a custom function to put the single quotes around it, because as you can see, seeing the difference between the single quote and the double quote is actually quite hard. And if it's the end of a long day, you're guaranteed to end up screwing things up and making a mistake. So just use a custom function. There are some other things we can do with strings that are not just simple comparators like it equals or not equals. We can use starts with. This has a slightly different construction. So we're filtering something, starts with bracket, this field, and the value. The same is true for ends with. So that's like, so we can starts with, in the name, anything that starts with J, we'll find all the names that begin with J, okay? Ends with works, at the end, you can work that one out. Contains uses the same construction. Is this set of letters anywhere inside this field? Okay, that error message is directly out of the Microsoft Graph implementation.
Okay.
Because, so you can, there's a place where I was doing it. I wanted to know on somebody's account what groups they had set up in Azure. So I've got, give me all the group names that start with FileMaker. Well, what happens if somebody's set it up wrongly? So could I look for all the group names that have file somewhere in the middle of it? That's what you get back from Microsoft. We don't support that. Sorry. Now, OData will give you the answer back, but we have to learn by doing what is supported. So that's again, that's what we're trying to do over this week, is go, here's what is supported in FileMaker. Just because you will read it somewhere else in some documentation, every single
Okay.
person, while it's essentially neutral and agnostic, everybody's doing it their own way. Okay. We have three more at the bottom. We can convert a value to uppercase or to lowercase.
Okay.
That's very similar to SQL. And we can also use a substring of something that we're looking for, and that's the construction for how to do it. Okay, so we got a bit more advanced German now. So we've got all those numeric comparators, and we've got these string comparators. Not expecting you to use them from day one, but these are the tools in your armory. These are the little bits in your Swiss Army knife. You can string all of these things together, okay, using the kind of logic that you would expect, and or using brackets. So something like this, filter where the name equals John and the surname equals Renfrew is how that would be written. So that will find specifically my record. Filter where the price is not 0 and the quantity is less than this, or it's more than this, or it's, you know, you can build a complex query with all of these pieces, obviously separated by and or keywords. But when it's text, let me remind you, it's case sensitive. Okay. Which is kind of why the 2 upper and 2 lower become important, so that you can just kind of go make both sides of the equation the same, make them both uppercase, and then it will find all of them. So there's, just for a small break, there's my custom function for single quoting text. It literally is putting a character 39 on each side of the text, so that in the scripts that we're going to see, we're going to use that custom function to make sure that it just works. So FileMaker is going to be using this dialog. So again, if you're used to using this, you know, we're going to go, this is a refresh. If you're not really used to using this, let's just talk about the pieces that are in this dialog box. And what the scripts I've done are going to do is collect all of the pieces that you need to put into the various parts of that dialog box, rather than trying to write things. Because it's hidden away behind a specify button, it becomes really difficult to edit. So I think it's better practice to write them all as variables beforehand and use them in the dialog. So we're going to collect all the pieces for the insert for a URL, and then we're going to do the action. Then we're going to look at what the errors may be that have come back, and then if there's no errors, we're going to look at the results and decide what to do with them. And because it's my presentation, we're going to use my style of doing things. If you haven't thought about doing it this way, I'll tell you why I'm right and you're not. However, one of the key things in working with this is using insert text is really helpful, because you just type in the text and you don't have to worry about juggling with escaping things, okay? Which can be a pain in the ass, because escaping has to be \speech mark, \speech mark, okay? So I'm going to create a variable for the domain part of this to match how we're doing it in Postman. I'm going to create what I've called an endpoint. Here's the bit at the end, that's the file. I'm going to create a calculated result, because this does need to calculate for the authorization. And then we need to create the options. And this is where I really feel that doing it as text is important. It saves, I've seen people get really lost with why doesn't it work, and it doesn't work because they've made it complicated by doing it as a list of things that they've had to escape everywhere. Genuinely, stop doing it So in the options, the things in gray are kind of optional. We've got -x is what's the action? The action is a get. -h, we discussed yesterday, it works with -h or -- header. -h is the authorization. Now, you do have to, because it's a text, not calculation, I'm doing it so that you can just do a substitute here, but it's one single substitute. But it means that I can copy and paste this script step anywhere and do the substitution and know it works. We're going to be it's the paragraph mark. It's a paragraph
So
mark if you've got a Mac keyboard.
What is
it's in
that
the top
character
left.
right there that looks like a S that got
It's a paragraph mark from proofreading. It's a character that you're not ever going to have in your text.
What?
It doesn't matter. Use your own character. Okay. We're gonna say this is what we want back. We're going to dump the header into a global variable, so it's going to stay even after our script is finished, and the trace. Okay. So, and then at the end, we'll talk about this in a second. So let me just get into Postman. In this table here, let's just jump back to it. Here, this field called string has the word John in it. Okay. And so I want to know in this table, don't show me everything, but filter it where this field called string is equal to John. Okay. I click the button and there we go. Bingo. Now, we know that's going to work because there's only one, but that's fine. So I will demonstrate this is what happens when I put a capital J. It's not going to find it. It's going to go, there you go, there's an empty value. It can't find something where there's a field with capital J-O-H-N in it, but it can find it when correctly it's that. So there are some implications of that in terms of when you're kind of searching for stuff. And then, you know, I work with students, and students are notorious for being unable to correctly enter their own name in a form and spell it correctly. So assuming that this table contains data that you think is correct is probably foolish on the best of schemes. So let's jump back to FileMaker over here. And I'm going to go now to here and to here. Okay. So that is how to get things. Okay. That's all that getting things involves. Quick PowerPoint slide. So what we're looking for after we've done that action in FileMaker is, has there been a script error using getLastError? And has the header given us any information which indicates that there's an error in the header? Okay, we'll talk about that in a minute. I've got a custom function to be able to do that. But I want to know that the status is 200 in this case. 200 means it was successful. So if it hasn't worked, I'm showing a custom dialog. Hey, otherwise, which is what we showed before, I'm going to show the result. That's how easy a get is. But that's not the juicy stuff, obviously, is it? So I've got a script which I'm just going to run, and then we'll dissect how it works. And I'm going to create a record from here in the UK, in my purple file, in the file on the left. And we're going to go ooh when it's done. One of you, give me a number from 1 to 10.
7.
Thank you. It's going and finding, oh, something went wrong. Now then, that's very interesting. It thinks that in this particular case, 201 wasn't successful, but clearly the record has been created. So that's kind of my issue. If I look in the, that's really irritating. If I look in the data viewer, this is what I got back from the FileMaker's action. It says HTTP 201 created. So in this case, the success actually should be if I go into here, so it's because in here I said if the status is not 200, then think it's an error. Okay, so in this case, I'm just going to modify this so that now the script says, oh, check it if it's 201 is actually a success. So you have to kind of know and that's why Postman is really good, because the same command in Postman, let's just do a quick, here, this tells you the same thing. This says, hey, that thing was successful, it was a 200. If you're reading documentation from other people's systems, they will tell you what the success result is. But in this case, we have to learn what it is. Okay. So, Margaret, your turn to give me a number from 1 to 10, but not 7.
3.
Okay. So, it's going to go up. Basically, it's going to the internet to a thing that gives me random people. And this is random person number 3. And in this case, because I got a 201 response, I'm saying, oh, 201 is absolutely fine. There you go. That's the result of what just happened. Okay. And so what happened was I created a record over here and it gave me back all of the record that I just created. Okay. Everybody okay with how that's actually working?
I think I'm following, but I have a quick question. It got mad about the FileMaker context earlier, but it's okay now that you're not in the correct table.
So the issue, the issue was just I wrote a script that I knew worked, but it still has to obey all the FileMaker rules.
Yes.
I was running the script on a layout that didn't contain the fields that I was using in the script.
Got it.
Okay. So the scripts that you write in FileMaker do all the things that FileMaker scripts are always doing, but OData isn't magic to solve all your problems. Really, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not fairy dust. Okay. It really isn't. It really is not fairy dust. Okay. So that is. Let's just jump into here for 2 seconds because this is a reminder. So this time I did a post, not a get. I additionally need to tell it what type of content I'm sending. That's what the content type is for. And this special bit of magic in the middle is how to send the data easily inside this request. FileMaker says if you put the @ symbol before a variable, we will magically convert that into the curl thing that we need. You don't need to know anything about the magic that we've written. So you create a variable with the data, and the -d is, hey, this is how you send data. So this is what that script would look like. Here's the options, which start with post. And then the data that you're sending is a JSON object of what you want to create. And what's in the JSON object is set of field names and a set of values. That's very similar to how the data API kind of works. It's how it works in lots of other places. That's kind of what you're expecting. Yeah. So let's go back into FileMaker. So the next thing I want to do is we called it patch. We want to modify a record that currently exists. Okay. So I'm going to copy this key ID here. I'm going to go into my update script and just put it into this piece of text so that obviously when I've made a new record, it's got a new key. And we're going to, so instead of doing a post, we're going to do a patch. But a patch needs to know which record it's working with. A post obviously doesn't. It just goes, hey, send this off. But a patch is very specifically, hey, find the record where this is true. So we're going to find a record and I'm going to patch it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the value of the city, whatever it is, to Houston. Okay, so that's what I'm wanting to do. I can't think of a reason why I wouldn't want to do that. So here's the record on the left-hand side, top left. There's currently some weird made-up city. I'm going to run this script, and it's going to go, oh, something went wrong. So that's a good thing because we have to go and find out what I did wrong. And this time we had a 400 error, which is a totally different type of error. Meaning, yeah, that was a bad request. So we have to do a bit of investigating as to why that was a bad request. So let's just run this through the script debugger. Because actually, like I said at the beginning, I think breaking things is a really key kind of helpful bit in the process. So we're going to get in the result this. Uh-oh. To do what you just did needs a single record. Okay. I do know I have deliberately broken it. I do know why that was happening, but it's to show you that OData is giving me some helpful errors. If you get a 400 error, that result has gone away, but at least I know that there was an error. And the reason is because I forgot to put the filter into the URL string. I need to stop running that and edit the script instead. So if I turn that line on and take that line off and save it. So I was just sending it the domain and the file name, but not the whole thing with the filter. So now if I run it, what we're going to expect is that Houth changes to, uh-oh, something else went wrong. That's not very cool, because I thought I'd fix that. I'll turn that off for a start. So we're going to there, we're going to there, we're going to there. I'll just run it through the script debugger, see what happens. Go down to there, run that. We do love live coding for this reason. What do the results say? Oh, okay. So this is a different error now. The field called the key doesn't exist in any of the tables in the query. Okay, it's completely my fault, obviously, but I am getting helpful information back about what's gone wrong, not just, uh-oh, it went wrong, okay? And the reason is that this field here is called key ID, not the key. Okay, so now I'm going to have to modify the filter to say, oh, actually, what you need to be filtering is a field called key ID. Okay, and save that. And let's just run. Oh, and there you go. It's happened.
There you go.
Okay. So FileMaker is giving, OData is giving us some information that is helpful to us if things go wrong. But as ever, we need to interpret what it is that went wrong. The second thing there was really helpful because it said, hey, there's a field name that's in the whole thing that just doesn't exist. That is, you are being silly, okay? But that just shows that it works. So let me just do this again. And let's change this to, oh, I don't know, change it to Greenville. Save that. Just so this is going from me to somewhere in America and back again in terms of the result. So I am updating data live on Richard's server, and it's taking about that long. But it's happening somewhere across the world. The gap is due to it's traveling an ocean, but it's not completely unreasonable in terms of performance. It's not super smart and snappy, but it absolutely is working in somewhere completely different. So let's see where we're up to, because we're kind of at time, I think, but I don't want to. So that's the slide that goes with that. To patch the record, we need both the data and the specific query to say, hey, which record are you trying to patch? Now, this will work. This is like an advanced level topic, so that we're just doing it with one thing. If your filter finds 5 records, it will change the city to Greenville on all 5 of the records. Okay. So let me see how many slides I've got. I've got 2. I'm going to do this bit tomorrow. So what we're going to do first thing tomorrow is with the get, we're going to look at how we sort things. We're going to look at restricting how many we get. We're going to look at another way of talking to a record. Here's an important thing, though, about the errors, because we did just talk about errors. There's 3 places that we're getting errors. One is the get last error script step, but mostly the thing happened, and therefore there isn't going to be a script step error. The fact that it happened and it was a broken result means it still happened. But there are a couple of places where get last error is helpful. Inside the result is where I looked to say, hey, that's the specific error. And obviously I'm reading something that's in the header to tell me about whether the action itself was successful or not. So we've said a 200 was a good thing, but then in another place, actually it needed to be a 201. And there are other places where it needs to be a 204. Anything that starts with a 2 is generally good. We'll talk tomorrow about what happens if you starts with 100, but anything that's bad is things like anything that starts with a 4 and a 5. So we'll talk about this tomorrow. I have a custom function that will extract. Here on the right-hand side are 2 examples of returned headers. The first one, clearly, the result is a 400. We just want to extract the 400. The second one says, hey, what happens if the first thing's a 100, which means carry on. You need to not extract the first number, but however many, whatever the last one is. Talk about that tomorrow. So Any questions on where we got to today to recap?
Yeah,
Because I'm happy to.
Margaret,
happy
it's
to do
been
that.
really quiet. Are people actually here?
I assume so. Like I had people in Twitch trying to tell you where the error was. So
Oh, okay.
they found it. So
Good.
I like I said, I haven't really had a lot of questions. I figured out but because it's been people are saying that they're here. John is explaining it very thoroughly and at a very sedate pace, which means that I can very easily jog and keep up. So I'm not.
Someone said that they could
So-
jog and keep up.
That's what
Okay.
I'm saying. I can.
Oh, that's what you're saying.
I'm not like panicking because I've been left in the dust and nodding my head a lot. So
So these are the key, as we said at the beginning, these are the key building blocks, okay? Getting something about records, creating records, updating records. We haven't looked at delete. We'll quickly do that tomorrow but you can almost certainly work out how you'd be wanting to do that, okay? From the information I've given you. It's a different command, but you need a record. We'll show it in action tomorrow, kind of thing. But, these are the basic building blocks of every API interaction. But obviously, this is how it's specifically working inside FileMaker, talking to another FileMaker file. It's a good thing about not trying to jam everything into one session, Richard, I think, is saying, hey, we can do building blocks here. So this was day 2's building blocks, was using Postman initially to kind of check your stuff worked, then go, okay, now we need to transfer it into FileMaker. We're creating all the pieces. If somebody wants to look at the script in detail, that's fine. I'm going to be imagining, as you said, there's a bunch of people here who kind of okay and familiar with the general stuff. So we're not trying to patronize anybody, but we are going to make sure that everybody has got all of the pieces, all of the knowledge that they need to make progress in this topic.
Correct.
So
Yeah, that's what
we're gonna press the accelerator a little more tomorrow and assume that you've all done some homework and learned this all so that we can go a bit faster. Scream if you want to go faster.
Absolutely. Margaret, if we don't have any questions, remind people, please ask questions, because if you have a question, almost guaranteed that multiple other people have the exact same question. So it's very, very, very important. All right. Margaret, anything else?
no, I think we're good. So I'm gonna run music and we will see you guys tomorrow.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
Good job, John. Thank you. Good
Bye.
job.